Hello and welcome to Serenity Sounds. Thank you for tuning in today. We are at the midway point in May, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I wanted to take today to talk about a couple aspects of mental health struggles that many of us are experiencing right now during the pandemic, and to also just kind of talk a little bit about what we've done in previous videos and what you can expect in upcoming videos as I'm continuing to put these videos out to try and give everybody a little bit of a boost and a moment of self-care during these challenging times. So if you're new to this channel, welcome. I have been posting Serenity Sounds videos every Saturday, as well as throwing in a few midweek ones here and there. I decided to start this because I wanted to give people a platform where they can go and just take some moments of self-care and learn some mental health tips and strategies to help them through any struggles that they might be experiencing during this new normal that we're all forced into. So, a little bit about my background. I am a certified therapeutic musician specializing in harp, and I also have a master's in counseling psychology, and I am a certified life coach. So, this is kind of my way to combine all of those and offer some discussion, mindfulness techniques, and harp therapy to form a little bit of a community where we can all get through this together and we can all work on keeping ourselves as mentally well as we can. So what we're going to do today is I thought it would be nice to just talk a little bit about some of the struggles that a lot of us are experiencing, and I will be following up this discussion in future weeks with a couple videos of exercises that I'll be discussing in today's video. So the main topic of this video today is change and how change can lead to grief responses. Now I know that grief is a tricky word, and when we hear it, we automatically equate it to death. And yes, of course, during this pandemic, death is an aspect of that, but there are many other changes that are going on right now that can lead to grief responses. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then I'm also going to give a few exercises that you can do if you're starting to feel anxious, worried, if you're starting to get overwhelmed with grief or negative thoughts and feelings. These exercises will help you cope with that. I know that some of you are at a point right now where you are phasing out of these mandated stay-at-home orders, and others, like myself, we are still smack dab in the middle of lockdown phase. But no matter what part of that phase you're in, it doesn't change the fact that we are going through a lot right now. And I've talked about it in some previous videos, like my discussion on trauma and how when we're faced with constant bad news and constant changes, that can really take a toll on our mental health and well-being. How grief comes into play is that we are dealing with a bunch of changes. We are dealing with not being able to see family and friends, not being able to work or do the activities that we enjoy. And this starts to build and build and build. And emotionally, it can be very tough to handle. And as I talked about in the root chakra meditation a few weeks ago, our sense of security is feeling threatened. So all of these can make it really hard for us to get our bearings. When we feel these threats to our health, our security, our well-being, our family's health, security, and well-being, we can start to get really worried and really scared. And grief and fear are not emotions that are far from each other on the spectrum of emotion. We can even grieve for our unknown future, even though it hasn't happened yet, because we can know in our minds that things aren't going to be the same, and we might not know exactly how, but that feeling can really hit us deep because we probably had ideas and visions of how our future was going to be, how this year was going to go. And now, even if you're phasing out of lockdown, you might be entering this world where you're thinking, I don't really know how things are going to be different, how I'm going to handle things, but I know that I'm going to have to handle things differently. And things aren't looking the way that I expected them to. And that can be difficult. That can also cause a grief response. When I talk about changes that are going on right now, I divide them into two levels. There's the micro level and the macro level. The micro level is the level that's personal. So it's what you're going through as an individual. So you might have had changes in your job, or you might no longer be able to participate in the hobbies and activities that you once enjoyed. You might be dealing with the illness or death of a loved one, or you might be feeling the impacts of everything that's changed in your life. So, all of these can cause grief responses on that micro level. For many of us, we're also experiencing a bit of a loss of innocence, because before this, we could go about our days and not really think constantly about the vulnerabilities and the weaknesses that are exposed in our world. But now, all of a sudden, we are in a crisis situation and we're seeing all of those weaknesses. They might be weaknesses in ourselves, in our family, our friends, and our leaders. So we lose that innocence and that bit of naivete that a lot of times keeps us going and keeps us thinking positive about things. And then we have changes on the macro level. So this is more of the societal level. So we're seeing news of all these people who are getting sick and all these people who are dying, and we grieve for them. We grieve for society's loss of innocence, where now we don't really know who to turn to as our leaders and who we can trust. So we're very disillusioned by that. We grieve for the economy and all the businesses that are closing and all of the hardships that are going to result from this economic crash. Grief can manifest itself differently in different people. So some people might feel sadness or anger. Some people withdraw and they keep their emotions to themselves, while others really want to go around and they want to vent about it and they want to complain. Some people will dive into projects while other people just feel exhausted and don't feel like doing anything. As I mentioned in my trauma reactions video, these responses all need to be validated. We're going through something that is just this accumulation of stress, and a lot of us have never needed to be equipped to handle this before. So if our minds and our bodies are responding a certain way and we're mad at ourselves for responding like that, it's only going to make things worse. So we really do need to learn to just validate whatever we're feeling. Respect your reactions and respect the reactions of others, even if they're not the same as your own. Your grief may go through cycles too. So one day you might feel really productive, and then the next day you're just exhausted and it's hard for you to even get out of bed. This is okay too, and this happens. So let's talk about some of the practical things that you can do to process grief besides self-validation. We're going to go over 4 grief response methods. We have the counter thought, the confidant, the present, and meaning. The idea with the counter thought is that we need to learn to accept that negative thoughts and feelings are going to happen. And usually when they do, we fall to one extreme or the other. We either dismiss them really quick and say, nope, I'm not going to think about that. Or we dwell on them and that's all we can think about. We feel so anxious about it, and those negative thoughts, they just stew and stew and stew. Those are usually our responses. So the counter thought is our way to accept and validate these negative thoughts and feelings, but to also make sure that we're not going to go so far that we're going to dwell on them. So the exercise is simple. For every negative thought you have, you then think of a positive thought. So for example, if you're worried about your elderly relatives getting sick and this image pops in your head of them sick and in the hospital, you can accept that because for the circumstances, your thought is not irrational. These things could happen, and we have to be open to that, but that doesn't mean that we have to think about it so intensely that it's going to cause us to be sad and angry and scared. So we can accept it and say, yes, my elderly relatives might get sick, but then quickly replace it with a positive thought. Imagine them safe and healthy at home. So you think, okay, this could happen, but right now in the present, they are safe and they are at home. Or say, for example, you're sad because you can't go to work. Then that's okay. That's valid. Sit with that sadness, but then think or do something that brings you joy. So if you can't go to work, then think about your home and how thankful you are to have a roof over your head. Or if you're unable to work, then take some time to do something that you really love, like watch your favorite TV show or read your favorite book. So the idea is to create a balance in your mental state where you will validate any negative thoughts, feelings, and responses that you might have, but you're also inviting in the positive. The confidant is a good exercise for those of you who withdraw or close off when you're having some sort of grief or stress response. Find someone or something that you can use as a sounding board. The idea behind this is that bottling up all this negativity can have long-term mental and physical effects. So it's a way to vent without pouring everything out. If you choose a person, this person should be trustworthy, non-judgmental, and accepting of your feelings. This could be a friend or family member, a mental health professional, and of course it doesn't have to be somebody that's right there in person with you, because that's very difficult these days. We have loads of technology that we can use, so it could be a phone call, a video chat, anything like that. And the idea is to not just go off and vent all the negative and complain about everything. It's to strike this balance where if somebody asks you how you're doing, you don't have that knee-jerk response of, oh, I'm doing fine, how are you? Because if you're really not feeling fine, then you can choose somebody that you trust and say, you know what? I am definitely struggling today. I feel exhausted. I feel sad. I can't stop crying. And it opens up a discussion, but this discussion will be on a healthier level than just spewing negativity at somebody. If you don't have a person to serve as your confidant, that's okay. This confidant could be a pet, it could be a journal, you could even speak to yourself in the reflection of a mirror. Just be sure to state your negative thought or feeling and then validate it. With the method, the present, if you find yourself dwelling too much on the negative and you feel yourself starting to spiral, this method will help you refocus your attention on the here and now. We did this a little bit last week when we listened to the sound of our environment. And we're going to also be touching on this next week when I'm going to lead an exercise in presence. So what you do is you sit in a room and you have categories that you can make ahead of time. And the idea is to list off things that you see in your immediate vicinity that fall under these categories. So for instance, if you tell yourself, find something the color blue, you would look around the room and you would find something blue, and then you would state that to yourself, whatever that item is. So say you have a blue couch, you would see the couch and the couch is blue, you would say, the couch is blue, or I see the couch is blue. And you can say it to yourself silently, you can say it out loud. Sometimes it helps to say it out loud. And repeat it to yourself until you really start to notice your attention going to that blue item. Another one that I like to do is to notice 5 things in the room, and they can be any item, just 5 things. And you can go around and you can say, I see the ceiling, I see the floor, I see the table. And you continue on with your list. So the idea behind this is to really ground yourself in the present environment so your mind stops dwelling on all of the negative thoughts. Next week, we're going to be going through a version of this exercise where I will have you sit in a room and find things in your immediate vicinity. And I will also be doing some therapeutic sounds on my harp to help you orient yourself with your hearing as well. And lastly, we have the meaning method. It's really easy to shoo away this reaction of everything happens for a reason and this too shall pass, and those adages that we hear all the time. And this is because they're really abstract, so they're hard for us to get a handle on them, especially when we're in the middle of a crisis. It's always better to focus on the more concrete aspects of finding meaning. So, for example, if you're sad about not being able to see your friends, then you try to find something positive and meaningful that can come out of that negative situation. So you think, okay, I can't see my friends, and that really makes me sad, but I have technology at my fingertips. And what's great about that is it gives me the opportunity to learn technology. So if you used Zoom for the first time or Google Meetings for the first time, then you can say, well, I can't see my friends in person, but I am building my skills in learning these new programs. Or if that doesn't work for you, you could say, well, I can't see my friends in person right now, but I'm saving a lot of time because I don't have to sit in traffic going to their house, or I'm saving a lot of money by not going out. You find whatever meaning you can derive from this. So if these ones don't hit you, and they don't seem positive to you, then don't use them. Find your own positives and find your own meaning. Let's try another one. Say you can't leave the house without feeling stressed out. So you validate that feeling and you say, okay, that's okay that I'm feeling that way. But then you think about positive meaning that can come from it. So if you're spending more time at home, maybe that means you're getting more projects done at home. Or maybe you have more time to connect with your spouse and your children. And what about those of you who are transitioning back to a less distanced way of living? You might be feeling anxious about this, or you might still be processing what happened. But can you find meaning from it? Think about what you've learned or how you've grown from your situation. Are you closer to your loved ones now because of this? Do you think you're going to enjoy leisure activities more because you've been without them for so long? What other things will you take for granted less? Or if you're nervous about the changes in your routine, then what meaning can you derive from those? So you can say, going back to work is scary, and that's your validation, but it also means that I get to see my coworkers again, which is your positive meaning, if you like your coworkers. Or you could say, well, I'm scared to go back to work, which is your validation, but I get to go and have lunch from my favorite food truck or my favorite takeout place, and that's your positive meaning that you're deriving from a situation that is scary for you. Feel free to dig deeper and notice more lessons learned and more strength and wisdom that you've gained. So it could be something small, like you realize that you remembered your algebra from middle school because you were helping your kid with their schoolwork. And you thought, wow, I feel pretty cool about that. I thought that I forgot everything that I learned in school. And you realize that you hadn't. Or you could take that a step further and say, it's been really stressful having to help my kids with their schoolwork, but it's something we're going to remember. We're going to remember this time where we sat down and we helped each other out and we learned together. Or maybe you noticed that during this time, a lot of friends reached out to you and they used you as their confidant. So that probably makes you feel pretty good because it means that you're a caring and trustworthy friend. Or maybe you learned to lean on other people for the first time. Maybe this was the first time ever that you didn't feel ashamed about reaching out to a doctor or mental health professional. Or maybe you developed new self-care routines and you realized how before this everything was just go, go, go all the time and you weren't really taking a lot of time for yourself. But now you've realized that you want to prioritize that in your life. And even after you phase out of this period, you're going to try and keep up with your self-care. Just like with the counter thought exercise, if you allow yourself to be open to both the positive and the negative, then you will balance your psyche. This will help you accept and validate all of your feelings and will also help you build coping strategies like the ones that I outlined here today. So I know this was a little bit different because I believe this was the first time that I didn't include any of my harps in the video, but I thought it was important, being that we are in the middle of Mental Health Awareness Month, to really put a special emphasis on the mental health struggles that we might be feeling and how they all connect. Because I mentioned change connecting to grief. I also mentioned the trauma responses that I talked about several weeks ago and how those connect as well. So I hope these exercises will be something that you can take with you to help you cope and continue caring for yourself during this situation. So, as I said, next week I will be bringing my harp into one of these exercises, and we're going to be focusing on our immediate present environment. So, I'm going to be doing very simple sounds on the harp to help you orient with your sense of hearing, but you're also going to be observing your surroundings, and we're going to have categories of things that you can look for. And this will be great if you feel like you're really, really spiraling with negative thoughts and anxiety. You can come and watch the video, and I'll help you to ground yourself in your present environment. And then the week after that, we are going to be doing exercise 4, so our finding meaning exercise. And I'm going to create a little template for you where you can list the negative things that you're feeling or experiencing, and you can write the positive meaning that you can derive from the negative. And as you write your list, I will be providing a beautiful, soothing harp therapy session in the background. So that's what I have on the agenda coming up. So I really hope you'll tune in. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of the new videos that I'm posting. They are up every Saturday afternoon, but like I said, I do also once in a while post a midweek video as well, just to help you get through the week. This is definitely something that is my positive meaning that I have found in this situation, because when I found out that I wasn't going to be able to be providing my in-person harp therapy sessions and workshops, I jumped right on doing this, and this is what it's grown into. And I'm just really happy and grateful that I'm able to provide these little videos and exercises for you. All right, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.